He's without doubt the worst pirate I have ever seen.
Thank you, Commodore, for getting us ready to make way.
That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen.
So it would seem.
After months and months of deliberately putting this off, we've now finally arrived to the sad day of covering what is and seemingly will ever be the last remaining real Pirates of the Caribbean movie we've yet to cover, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Over the years, we've examined this franchise multiple times from multiple angles. The positive angle of how to build a plot, the negative angle of why to avoid making a sequel feel like a Happy Meal add-on, and so on, so on, so on. But I think for this final video, the only right thing for us to do is examine the heart and soul that makes Pirates of the Caribbean Pirates of the Caribbean, the character of Captain Jack Sparrow. The thing you can quickly notice about Captain Jack is that he has successfully become one of the most recognizable and memorable and downright iconic cinematic characters that cinema in its 100-year existence has created. No matter which part of the world you're from, when you see this combination of hat and scarf and dreadlocks, odds are you can fill in the name in the face. And the question this then brings up is, how is this accomplished? And more importantly, how can we as writers and filmmakers create a hero that leaves even near as much of an impression on the audience as Jack Sparrow? Well, first off, what we need to accept is the fact that there's a couple exclusive variables about Jack's success that we simply cannot purposefully recreate. There's Johnny Depp, who plays and inhabits this role so incredibly well, it's like trying to catch lightning in a bottle. There's the fact that this movie evolved into a multi-billion-dollar franchise, which is helpful in solidifying a character's legacy. And just in general, a lot of the qualities about Jack are exclusive to only Jack, and wouldn't necessarily work in other characters who aren't Jack, as we've discussed before. But aside from those variables, what are the constants behind Jack's memorability? In what ways is he created and handled in his first movie to make him leave a lasting impression? Well, let's look at The Curse of the Black Pearl and try to find out. Here's why you remember Captain Jack Sparrow not only after his movie's over, but years down the line. Here's a few key ways to creating a hero so impressionable and memorable that with a bit of fortunate wind in their back, they'll become a cinematic icon. The first key way this film successfully stores Captain Jack in your mind is by way of an incredibly effective first impression, which it achieves by introducing Jack in a way that visually encapsulates the essence of who he is. Basically, the introduction here is that Jack poses high and mighty on top of a high mast of a mighty ship when... And the reason this intro is so incredibly effective and basically sets the bar that the rest of us should aspire to get close to is because in a span of just 1 minute, the movie has successfully shown you exactly who this person is. Jack appears to be a total incompetent buffoon who rides the chaotic madness of a sinking ship, who pauses to pay respect to his fallen pirate peers, and who, despite all logical odds being stacked against him, still somehow manages to reach the finish line as if this was the way he always planned to do it. As in, whether you yet realize or not, the movie uses the intro to subconsciously insert these most essential Jack Sparrow character cores in your head that you can define and remember him by, and then spends the rest of the runtime just reinforcing and building them further. The aspect of Jack appearing as an incompetent buffoon illustrates the innocuous way he portrays himself to get a leg up on his underestimating opponents. Like when Jack is first captured, the Navy can only scoff at his apparent ineptitude.
You are without doubt the worst pirate I've ever heard of.
And then, because of that, he's gone. Or like when Jack is stealing a Navy ship, he just gets laughed at for apparently not knowing how ships work.
This ship cannot be crewed by 2 men. You'll never make it out of the bay.
And then because of that, again, he's gone.
Thank you, Commodore, for getting us ready to make way. We've had a hard time of it by ourselves.
That's got to be the best pirate I've ever seen.
So it would seem.
The chaotic madness aspect illustrates Jack's ability to act in such irrational, non-standard ways that it makes his actions impossible to predict or get a good bead on. Whether it's trusting a compass that doesn't point north, whether it's waltzing right into his enemy's home base, or whether it's, you know.
This is either madness or brilliance.
It's remarkable how often those two traits coincide.
The aspect of respecting his fallen peers illustrates how Jack takes pride in who he is and what he does, regardless of whatever other people might think. He's a pirate captain, and he's proud of it.
Captain Jack Sparrow.
You cheated.
Pirate. You can accept that your father was a pirate and a good man, or you can't.
Jack Sparrow. Be it known that you have been charged
Captain
by
Jack Sparrow.
And the aspect of finishing against all logical odds illustrates how even when Jack seems to be meeting his end, he still somehow manages to pull some kind of an ace from his sleeve to get back in the game, as if that's how he always planned it. Whether it's sabotaging your superior ship,
He's disabled the rudder chain, sir.
whether it's using your own strengths against you,
Couldn't resist, mate.
or whether it's leverage he's attained way back.
Kill him.
The girl's blood didn't work, did it?
Hold your fire.
So in other words, the movie gives you a promise of who Jack Sparrow is and then builds on top of that promise to convince you of what you deep down already know. And why it is so important to give that promise right away in the intro is because, as in real life, first impressions are always the strongest. If you meet a person who is blue and then get more shades of blue every time you meet them, you're not gonna forget that person is blue. But if you meet a person who is green and then red and then orange and then yellow, you lose the sense of who that person is. And if you aren't sure who a person is, then other than potentially that purposeful bipolar-like change, what is there to remember them as? Or if you meet a person who shows no color at all, did you really meet them at all? Identify your character's most essential cores and then have their introduction visually embody them. Captain Jack makes it very clear who he is the very first time you meet him, which is why there's no question about who it is you're supposed to be remembering. But if I'm still not being clear enough, here's one more outside the box example. Recently, I've personally been having a lot of problems on this channel. Problems of not being able to cover certain movies because they're not available in my region's Netflix. Problems of hackers threatening to reveal my real name and face to the internet if I don't quit. And with all these problems weighing me down, I'm not so sure I can keep making videos anymore. Okay, so did you see what just happened here? This blue button just clearly introduced itself to you as something that fixes problems like these. And as a result, you now know exactly what this blue button does and that you want one for yourself. And you're in luck, because that blue button is Surfshark, the most iconic of all the VPNs. As always, they're sponsoring today's video with an impressionable 83% off discount with 3 extra months for free by using code FILM. So if you haven't been introduced to Surfshark before, this is the way to protect your anonymity online and unlock all the geographically divided content in all streaming services. So check out the link down below, get Surfshark's magic blue button for yourself, help out the channel as well.
Okay, now I understood fully. Thank you for that great example, Filmento.
The second way Black Pearl stores Jack in your mental memory box is by filling his personal story with all these specifics that ultimately come together to create the understandable entity of why he is how he is. So once the character cores have been introduced, you'll notice that the movie then continuously brings up these bigger and smaller question marks about Jack's story that drive him and have led him to this point. Like a lot of question marks.
Move away. No. This shot is not meant for you.
What we have here, Tweak? Captain Jack Sparrow.
How did Jack get off the island?
He roped himself a couple of sea turtles, lashed them together and made a raft.
What did he use for rope?
How can Jack know so much about the Black Pearl and where it makes port? Why is Jack so hell-bent on going after the Pearl? How come Jack is aware of the medallion and Will Turner's background? We have all these unanswered mysteries surrounding him. As in, Jack doesn't come off as just a face value movie character, but more as a real person with his own real story that we genuinely want to explore the answers for, which is what we then begin to do.
That's the secret grand adventure of the infamous Jack Sparrow. He spent 3 days lying on a beach drinking rum.
Welcome to the Caribbean, lad.
Okay, so Jack was ousted as the captain of the Pearl, and that's why he's so hell-bent on getting it back. That's how he knows so much about the curse and Will Turner. That's what his one-shot pistol is for, and so on. Essentially, we find out all these big and small specifics about Jack Sparrow that begin to consciously form who and what and why is Jack Sparrow. Oh, Jack Sparrow, the desert island escapist who never actually escaped the desert island. Jack Sparrow, the guy who carried a pistol for 10 years just for one shot. Jack Sparrow, the captain who got mutinied against by his own crew, which has influenced how he trusts and interacts with other people today.
That should mean the location of the treasure, too. So Jack gives up the bearings. That night, there was a mutiny. Place things closer to the vest now. A hard-learned lesson it was.
Point is, we begin to see Jack through these very unique, distinctive angles with which we can remember him. And it doesn't always even have to be mysteries, it can be as simple as references ranging from mentions to actions. Just something to sell us on the fact that our hero isn't limited only to the confines of this one fictional movie, but instead has a real existence beyond it.
Had a brush with the East India Trading Company, did we?
Not sure I deserve that.
You stole my boat.
Never would have thought of that.
Clearly you've never been to Singapore.
Arson, kidnapping, looting, impersonating a cleric of the Church of England.
To be clear though, not every movie character can have prior adventures, and neither should they. It's all just about making the character larger than life, or larger than the movie itself. Maybe it's their heritage.
I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
Maybe it's their former actions.
I once saw him kill 3 men in a bar. With a pencil.
Maybe it's what they've lost, whatever. This might seem obvious when done well, but it's very easy to just begin your hero's existence from when your movie begins. And don't do that. Instead, think about what your hero did yesterday, what they did last year, what has led them to be the person they are today. Because when you meet a person in real life, it's not like their life begins from the moment you meet them, and neither should your heroes. Jack Sparrow in The Curse of the Black Pearl is the sum of all these specific unique things he has done and lived through, and all those specific unique things are what we can and will remember him through. Lastly, there's quite a few more different methods this movie uses to make Jack leave an iconic impression, so I wanna quickly run through most of them. First off, the thing you'll notice right away about Jack is that he is a physical manifestation of motive. He's someone who always relentlessly drives things forward in pursuit of his ultimate goal, which here is getting the Black Pearl. When he goes to Port Royal, it's to commandeer a ship to go after the Pearl. When he agrees to help Will, it's to use him as leverage for the Pearl. When he visits Tortuga, it's to recruit a crew to chase the Pearl. When he waltzes right into the enemy base to barter with Barbossa, it's to...
She'll take the Grandest as your flagship, and who's to argue? But what of the Pearl?
And the reason motive is so crucial is because characters who actively, relentlessly pursue and do things others wouldn't even dare try, those are the characters that stay with you. We remember the people who did, not the ones who didn't. We are what we do, and if we do nothing, we are nothing. And with Captain Jack, his wealth of motive is present already in the very first shot he appears in. The other thing to notice about Jack is that most often he's the one with the odds stacked against. He's the one who has to go the extra mile to achieve victory. You know, he saves Elizabeth and still gets sentenced to death just because of the stigma his kind carries. He gets betrayed by his own crew and has to spend the next 10 years trying to get back the Pearl. He's the only prisoner who doesn't get freed by the random cannonball. He's clearly outmatched when sword fighting Will, and therefore has to find another way to win.
Pirate.
You can call it the underdog story, you can call it brains over brawn, but the point is to make your hero someone whose identity is more a drawback than advantage, someone who has to work extra hard to overcome the obstacles thrown in their way. Because the bigger the obstacle your hero overcomes, the stronger the impression they leave. Then there's also Jack's incredibly strong personality that makes him stand out from most other movie characters. He doesn't compromise, he doesn't go halfway or ask permission. He is who he is and is not afraid to show it. Whereas most people would probably be cautious of the devil's den, he'll just waltz right in.
Excuse me. High blood.
It's not possible. Not probable.
But the last point that I really want to highlight here is how Jack is thematically tied to the main most inner core that this movie and this entire franchise are. That main most inner core being...
For the Black Pearl.
really is freedom.
Right, Jack essentially embodies Pirates of the Caribbean's central theme of freedom. In this specific movie world, Jack sees piracy not just as a way to plunder and pillage, but instead as a way to go where you want and live how you want and be truly free of the restrictions of the modern age. As in, when we think of Jack, we don't see just a goofy man wearing dreadlocks and eyeliner, but someone who represents something much more. And as a wise man in an old prison cell once said, that's how you last.
The vigilante is just a man lost in the scramble for his own gratification. He can be destroyed or locked up. But if you make yourself more than just a man, if you devote yourself to an ideal, then you become something else entirely. A legend.
And I guess what I'm trying to say here is this. Jack Sparrow has successfully become a cultural icon without whom Pirates of the Caribbean in its current form cannot exist, which gives us two things to learn. Firstly, if you want to create a character even near as iconic, that's what you should aim for. To have your character embody your movie's central thematic message so strongly that they become one and the same. And secondly, if you want to make more Pirates movies, the only way they'll truly function is if you first adequately conclude Jack's story. So I guess what I'm really trying to say here is, give me Pirates of the Caribbean 6 featuring Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow, or don't give me anything at all.